Hey guys, I'm back and we are talking about Onyx, which is the next book in the Look series by Jennifer Armentrout, which is my favorite series. I do love me some Damon Black. Yes, I do. Dark-haired sassy boys just make my day. So yes, I have the physical copies. They're like, I don't think you can see them, but they're back there. But I like the convenience of the Kindle because I can read it wherever, and it's easier and quicker. And I'm one of those weirdos who, if I already had Lux because I had already read it. This is a reread. But if I read it on Kindle and I like it, I will buy the physical copy so that I can have the physical copy. I have a book problem, y'all. Okay, the book, Onyx. I love this book. I mean, I love this series. So, of course I love Onyx. So, Onyx, you get a little more. So, Obsidian is kind of like the intro, right? Like, you're just getting to know Damon and Katie. I mean, you got to get to know Damon a little bit in Shadows, but Shadows is mainly about Dawson and Bethany. And so, Onyx is really like kind of digging into that relationship between Katie and Damon. And I am here for it. Dig away. It is wonderful. Okay. So, 5 stars, obviously, because it's Jennifer Armentrout. And it's my favorite series. So, yeah. And the main characters are Damon and Katie. And so there's a lot more character growth in this book. You see a lot more sides of Damon. You see Katie change and grow, and God knows this girl goes through some growing pains, y'all. And that part is painful. It's painful for me because I'm just like, just love Damon. What's wrong with you? So, there's also, you get some new characters. There's some not so cool things that happen. There's actually like some heartbreak, which if you've read Jen's books, which a lot of you have read from Blood and Ash, you know the main character gonna walk through some doo-doo, okay? Some crap is gonna happen. Life is not gonna be sunshine and rainbows and puppies, and that's just kind of, you know, that's Jen's world. And that's how characters grow, right? Because if we never went through anything, we wouldn't grow as human beings. And so it's the same thing in the book. The things that I like about this book are obviously Katie and Damon. All the Damon. Yes. Yes, please. Dislike is Katie trying to date somebody else. It's like, girl, didn't you learn anything from the last book? Remember the last book when you was like, I'm going to go to the dance with Simon? And how did that work out? You about got accosted in the woods at a field party. And so then this book, you like, I'm going to go out with the new guy. And what happened? You almost died in a field. I'm just saying that maybe you should just stick with Damon. That's all. So that's my review. Is Katie stick with Damon. No, my review is I love this book. I love this series. You should definitely read it. It will make aliens sexy. I mean, Jennifer Armentrout, we were talking about this in the book talk group the other day. Like, who makes aliens sexy? Jennifer Armentrout makes aliens sexy. It's just like Gargoyles, because she's got a Gargoyles series too. That one I think you can see. Kind of see. Stone Cold Touch, Every Last Breath, Rage and Ruin, Storm and Fury. Yeah, you can see those. It's about gargoyles. And you're like, who goes, you know what would be really hot? Gargoyle book. But Jen makes it hot. All right, so that's our review. On to the recap. So getting into the spoilers. All right. So it starts off, Katie is sick. It starts off with like a headache, and the next thing you know, she's puking. And then she just gets progressively more and more sick. And her mom thinks she's got the flu, and she's giving her Tylenol and stuff. And then like literally one night, Katie, she thinks she's in a dream. So people, when they run a really high fever, like, will, as people like to say, talk out of their head. Like, they're really, you're kind of getting brain damage from the fever. So Katie thinks she's dreaming and wakes up at the lake, in the lake, whatever. She wasn't dreaming. She was really in the lake. Like, her body was burning up so bad, she went and got in this frozen lake trying to cool herself down. And Damon has to pull her out of the lake and take her to the hospital. So they give her something. Will, the doctor in the emergency room, gives her something, and she's magically better the next day. Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, something shady. Something shady there. So, anyway, Damon, because you remember the last book, Damon's like, look, girl, I like a challenge. And she's like, so do I. So do I. So he, like, is for real courting her. He is bringing her smoothies and cookies. And there's, like, this whole thing. And there's actually a GIF, whatever, on Facebook of the guy who's the cover model for Damon with a cookie in his mouth, because there's actually this scene where he's like, you want a cookie? And she's like, yeah. And when she goes to reach for it, he puts it in his mouth and is like, come get it, girl. Just type Damon in your gift bar and you're going to see the cookie. Back to the story. Okay, so in I got sidetracked thinking about Pepe with the cookie. Okay. At school, this new boy comes into bio, Blake Sanders, and he's like, or Saunders, it's Saunders. Anyway, and he is like, says he's into blogging and surfing, and now he's the new kid, and so there's this like kind of automatic connection with him and Katie. Yeah. Simon is going around, that's the jerkwad from the field party, from the homecoming dance, is going around telling everybody that him and Katie hooked up at homecoming. And Damon ends up, like, beating him up because, he's Damon and Simon's jerk face. So Katie, of course, Katie has a book blog, and Katie gets books, and so she's talking about her books, and I just love this, like, quote from the book. Katie says, dog-eared pages were the Antichrist of book lovers everywhere. And it's the truth. Like, there's a meme somewhere. It's like, friggin' people who dog-ear pages are monsters. Like, use a bookmark. So Kat, like, I get so frustrated in this book because it's like, girl, because she wants Damon. She wants Damon. She's in love with Damon, but she can't admit that to herself. And she keeps saying, oh, it's just the connection. He doesn't really want me. He doesn't really love me. It's just the connection that we have. And I'm just like I wrote, girl, really? I did. You see, I was like, girl, you better get with that boy. Quit messing around. So, anyway, Dee and Adam are like acting kind of weird. And so at one point, Katie's like, Dee, what's going on with you and Adam? She's like, oh, we had sex. Just like it was nothing. She's like, oh, we had sex. She's like, and now it's weird. And Kat's like, you need to talk to him. So she does, and then they're pretty much Velcro with each other for the rest of the book. So Kat's mom is dating this doctor from the hospital, Will. The same one that gave Katie something that miraculously made her feel better. That one, yes. You see why I'm saying it like that, right? That I'm like, put that back here for later. Okay. So, Dee decides to have a party. It's kind of like an unofficial birthday party for Katie. And anyway, so at this party, she goes to the party with Blake, okay? Katie goes with Blake. They're kind of seeing each other. There's not really anything there. I think she just doesn't want to admit what's there with Damon. So she's trying to do whatever with who. That doesn't sound right. I was going to say she's trying to do whatever with whoever. That don't sound right. She's just trying to distract herself from what she feels. So anyway, at the party, Ash is hanging. So Blake like leaves because he has to go somewhere. And Ash is like hanging all over Damon. And Katie gets jealous and has to like walk off and cool off or whatever. And she gets to like this abandoned house somewhere on their street. And Simon shows up, wanders into her or something. Anyway, he's like drunk and beat up, and he's like, call Damon off. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Like, call Damon off. And then he starts getting all handsy with her, and she freaks out and busts the windows in the abandoned house, and Simon runs off. So on Katie's birthday, which I think is like the next day or whatever, Damon actually comes over and eats ice cream cake with her. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so sweet because he's trying to legit court Katie. And he says something like, am I that bad or something like that. And Katie says, this is one of my favorite quotes. Okay, you're prone to moments of great dictum, but you're not bad. Kat goes out on a date with Blake, or 2 dates, I'm not sure. But she keeps making out with Damon. And it's like, girl, you know you want that boy. So anyway, for Thanksgiving, Damon actually brings over food for Katie because she was by herself because her mom was at work. And he brings over a Christmas tree. And it's like this whole thing because Katie and her dad used to put the Christmas tree up together on Thanksgiving during the Thanksgiving parade. And so Damon brings a Christmas tree. And Katie actually like starts crying because it's so sweet. And I'm just like, oh, now they're gonna kiss and be for real. But no, no, not yet. So Katie is like, she goes, she was at the post office or something and sees Bethany. And so she tells Damon. Damon's like, don't tell Dee because I don't want to get Dee's hopes up, because he's thinking, well, if Bethany's alive, Dawson's alive. And so they actually stake out Vaughn's house. And when they're at Vaughn's, like waiting to see what happens, Damon kind of calls Katie out on being a crappy friend. He's like, you're really being a crappy friend to Dee, Lisa, and Carissa because you're spending all this time with Blake. And she remembers her dad telling her to like use her words. And so here's a thought from Katie. Words were the most powerful tool, simple and so often underestimated. They could heal, they could destroy. So what's been happening is like Blake knows that Katie is whatever. And I think he's trying to like on the DL, like make her trust him so she'll confide in him that she's mutated or whatever. And they've been spending a lot of time together because he's trying to train her. And Damon does not trust Blake. And he has made it known that he does not trust Blake and does not want her spending all this time with Blake. And it's like, you're not reading your books, you're not doing your blog, you're not hanging out with friends. Like this, something's not right there. But Katie, okay. I don't want to make it out like Katie's doing it just to spite Damon. She, in her mind, thinks if she can control, because Katie's got powers. When she came in from the hospital, she had all these powers, right? And she can't control them. And she thinks if she can control these powers, and she can fight and defend Damon and Dee and protect the people that she loves. Okay. So, when they're hanging out at Vaughn's and like having this whole conversation about her being a bad friend, they actually see a freaking Aram come up to the house, which is the bad aliens. Okay. So they go to Matthew's house to tell Matthew everything's going on. And Matthew tells them the reason healing a human is forbidden is because that when a Luxon heals a human, they actually become like bonded on a cellular level. So if one dies, the other dies. And that's why they're not supposed to heal each other. So Damon and Katie are linked. So are Dawson and Bethany. So is Blake and his buddy. So, because Blake is like Katie. I think that's how he gains her trust, because he's like, oh, we're just alike. I got hit by a car and my friend healed me. And so, I had to learn all this for myself too. So Damon comes over like the next day after they go to Matthew's or whatever and actually helps Katie film a vlog. And when they get done and she's putting the laptop up, Damon sees the bruises from where she's been training with Blake, because Blake's been like all aggro, like kind of cray-cray. So he like heals her and he puts her to bed. And oh my God, it is so precious because he says, because he's just like standing there at the side of the bed and Katie looks at him and he says, can I just hold you? That's all I want is just to hold you. And I'm like, me too, Damon. That's all I want too, is for you to hold me. That's all I want to. And they fall asleep in bed and wake up to Katie Ann Schwartz. Busted big time. Her mama and Will are standing there in her bedroom doorway. Damon leaves because, I mean, they were closed. It's not like they did anything. They both had their clothes on or whatever. But still, Katie had a boy in her bed. So Katie has like this whole embarrassing conversation with her mom while Will is there. Like, if you're just the boyfriend, right, and you don't live there and y'all haven't been, like, wouldn't you excuse yourself? Wouldn't you be like, well, babe, I'm gonna go ahead and go. Like, I know you guys need to talk. But no, creepy Will hangs out while she's having this weird conversation with her mom about the fact that she's not having sex with Blake or Damon. Because her mom's like, well, first you were hanging out with Damon, then you were hanging out with Blake. Now Damon's in your bed. And she's like, no, Mom, no. And it's so weird. So, when Will finally does leave, he's like all creepily looking at Katie while he's kissing her mom bye. Something ain't, it's creepy. So, anyway, fast forward to Christmas. Will is there again. And her mom puts Katie and Will on dinner duty, so while she takes a shower, and Will's all trying to like talk to Katie and be friendly with Katie, and then he actually tells her that he's best uncle. Yeah. And I literally was like, abort, like run, because this mofo is up to some shady stuff. Like, no. So later, Damon and Kat scope out a warehouse that they saw Vaughn go to. And Damon goes in while Katie keeps watch. And she sees an SUV pull up. And she texts Damon, like, hey, dude, I just saw an SUV pull up. And Damon doesn't respond. So Katie gets out to go let Damon know that there's people there. And she actually gets busted. And the guards grab her and they're going to take her. But then Vaughn shows up. And Vaughn lights them up and kills them, and it's actually Damon. Yes. Like, Damon had shape-shifted into Vaughn. Anyway, so they leave, and then later on, Katie is, like, researching the DOD officers and realizes that Vaughn is actually Blake's uncle. Yes. 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 Oh. Okay, so Kat goes to Vaughn's now that she knows that Blake is Vaughn's nephew to see if she can find like some proof, some evidence, whatever. She uses her powers to get in the house. And then she finds a desk and she finds a folder that has like hundreds of pictures of her and Damon. Yes, all these times that they thought that they were alone together. Like literally all the way back to the beginning of the first book when they went to the lake swim, and there's pictures of that. Yes. So then Bethany shows up. Kat tries to talk to her about Dawson. Bethany freaks out and uses her powers to make Kat leave. Damon sees her on the way home and tells her home. And she tells Damon what happened. So then the next day, while Kat is napping, because, you know, using your alien mojo powers to break into a house is tiring. So she's taking a nap the next day. And freaking Blake shows up in her room. He just let himself in her house. Yeah. So he's like, well, let's go get something to eat and talk. And she says, okay. Well, when she gets in the truck, she sees something shiny in the floorboard. She picks it up. It's freaking Simon's watch. And she's like, oh, snap. Gets out the truck and goes to run. Blake grabs her and he's like, you know, Simon knew what you were. He was going to tell somebody, so I had to turn him in. And then he tells her that, because she brings up, I think, well, he like uses alien powers to like tase her, right? And then he's like telling her all this stuff that like he doesn't want to do any of these things, that he's forced to do these things, that whenever they find a mutated human, they send him in to kind of befriend them and see if they're salvageable. Yeah. So Dee comes to the door to pick Katie up for Ash's New Year's Eve party, and Katie's mean to try and get her to go away to protect Dee, because Blake's like, I will kill her, so you better make her go away. So Katie's mean to try and get Dee to go away. And then Blake texts Vaughn and is like, Vaughn's coming to get you. And then Dee and Adam bust in through the upstairs and fight Blake. Blake blasts them. It kills Adam. Dee is almost dead. Vaughn shows up with 2 Aram, and they try to take Kat and Dee. Kat flips out, turns into a freaking light bulb, and starts fighting, and Damon shows up. They get the 2 Aram. Vaughn and Blake are outside. Damon gets Blake, but then Vaughn shoots at Damon. Yes, like the whole last 100 pages of this book, I was like, so Vaughn shoots at Damon. Damon stops the bullets and sends them back at Vaughn, kills Vaughn. Blake runs away. Katie catches Blake, and Damon's like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I don't want to be that person. So they let Blake go. Yeah. So they get to when they're in the woods and they let Blake go, Damon kind of goes off on Katie. Understandably so, because now Adam's dead. And when they get back to the house, when Katie gets back to her house, Matthew is actually cleaning up the blood and everything from everything that happened. And Kat helps, and she's like, this is all my fault. If I would have just trusted Damon. And Matthew tells her, and I can't believe it, because Matthew's always been such a jerk to her. Matthew actually says, you're not responsible for Blake's choices and Blake's decisions, so don't put that on yourself. And they actually hold each other and cry. And I was like, Matthew's not a complete jerk face. So the next night, Kat is at the lake thinking about everything that's happened. And Damon actually comes to get her and takes her to his room so they can talk. And he tells her, if you would have just trusted me, if you would have told me what was going on, none of this would have ever happened, or may not have ever happened. And Kat's like, I did everything I did because of how I feel about you, and you mean too much to me to risk letting something happen to you. And she actually, I know, it's like Katie's finally, coming to grips with her feelings. So here's a quote from Kat. She says, and I never felt this way with anyone else. Like I'm falling every time I'm around you, and I feel alive, not just standing around and watching my life walk past me. There's been nothing like that with anyone else. And Damon tells her, he's like, Kat, I am mad at you, but I don't hate you. And he says, what thought I can't get out of my head? And she's like, no, what? And he says that I'm lucky, because the person I can't get out of my head, the person who means more to me than I can stand, is still alive. She's still here, and that's you. And she's like, how can you still want me? After, everything that happened. And Damon says, oh, I still want to strangle you. But I'm insane. You're crazy. And maybe that's why. Maybe we just make crazy together. And so they have like this moment, and they're kind of making out, and things are happening. But Damon like puts the brakes on it, because he's like, I want us to have an actual date. I want us to do what normal couples do. So I want us to do this right. And I don't want the first time that we're together to be overshadowed by everything that's happened. I know. It's just so perfect. So, next day at school, Katie gets called to the principal's office. And Will is there. And Will tells her that her mother was in a car accident and she's in the emergency room. So Katie, of course, gets in the car with Will to go to the hospital. Will actually injects her with something. She passes out. When she wakes up, she's in a cage. And there's a girl named Mo there. 2 guards show up to take Mo. Katie says something. They grab her and put some kind of handcuffs that are made of onyx on her that causes excruciating pain to the point she passes out. Yes. When she wakes up, Will is there, and he wants Damon to mutate him. He turned Bethany and Dawson in. He started dating her mom just so he could keep an eye on her. Yes. You remember when I was like, keep that little, yes, creeper Will. And when she was so sick and came to the ED, he knew what had happened, because he's implant for the DOD. Yes. So he knew what was going on when she came to the emergency room, and gave her some kind of serum that the DOD come up with that helps the mutation, because some people don't survive it. So Damon shows up, and Will gives Damon an address to get Dawson, because he figures, well, you can't chase after me and go get Dawson. So if I give you the address to Dawson, you have to let me go. And so he shoots himself in the leg. Damon heals him. Will leaves. Damon and Katie leave to go get Dawson. But when they get there, there's a freaking empty cage. So they're like, he lied. And, you know, he's just like grieving all over again, basically. Because he had grieved for his brother that he thought he had lost. And then thought, oh, he's still alive. And now he's lost him again. You know what I'm saying? So it's just bad. But then when they get home, Dee comes running out of the front door crying and grabs Damon. And then next thing you know, there's a figure standing in the doorway. It's Dawson. Dawson is at the house. And that's the end of the book. Yes. Crazy. It's so good. It's so good. I love this series. So the next book will be Opal, which is, that's a rough one. It's rough. But you know what? That's why we love them. That's why we love them. So thanks you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I hope you love the series as much as I do. And I'll see you next time with Opal.